Australia is not broke. That is the first lie Australians need to stop accepting. This country is roughly the 15th largest economy in the world by nominal GDP. We exported about a $644.4 billion in goods and services in 2024 alone. Our biggest export earners were iron ore at $124.5 billion, and coal at $85.2 billion, natural gas at $67.4 billion, and gold at $35.7 billion. So when Canberra acts like Australia is some struggling little economy with no room to move, that is spin. Australia is one of the most naturally wealthy countries on Earth. Geoscience Australia says that in 2024, Australia was the #1 global producer of iron ore and lithium. We were also among the top global producers of gold, manganese ore, zinc, and uranium. This is not a poor country. This is a country loaded with resources the rest of the world depends on. And yet, everyday Australians are being squeezed from every direction. Higher power bills, higher rents, higher mortgages, higher groceries, higher insurance, more tax pressure. And somehow, in a country that exports enormous amounts of energy, we are still meant to worry about fuel insecurity. That is not a lack of wealth problem. That is a government priorities problem, because here is the madness. Australia helps feed and power the world, but Australians themselves are told to accept decline. Work harder, pay more, expect less. And the question nobody in Canberra once asked too loudly is this: where is the money? Because the money is clearly there. The minerals sector says it paid a $59.4 billion in company tax and royalties in 2023-24, including a $32.5 billion in company tax and a $26.9 billion in royalties. That is not small change. That is a massive revenue stream flowing through one of the richest resource sectors in the world. So why does the average Australian worker feel like they are carrying the whole country on their back? Why do people hand over a huge chunk of their wages and still struggle to get ahead? Why are families in a resource-rich nation being told that affordable energy, decent infrastructure, housing security, and lower living costs are somehow unrealistic? And here is the other disgrace. Australia exports huge amounts of energy, yet our liquid fuel security has been a long-running national weakness. Parliamentary sources have repeatedly pointed to Australia's dependence on imported fuel and refined products, while the IEA benchmark remains 90 days of net oil imports. Does Australia have the capacity to hold 90 days? That means a country rich in energy can still be dangerously exposed if governments fail to protect national resilience. Think about how absurd that is. A nation that digs up the minerals, a nation that exports the gas, a nation that ships out the coal, a nation that boasts about being an energy superpower. And still, the public is expected to live with insecurity. That is not competence. That is not responsible government. That is a structural failure. And this is where Labour, and frankly the broader Canberra class, deserves real criticism. They talk constantly about fairness. They talk constantly about transition. They talk constantly about reform. But ordinary Australians keep asking the same question. If the country is this rich, why are the people feeling poorer? That question cuts through all the spin, because this is not about whether Australia has wealth. It does. This is about who benefits from it. Too often, the pattern looks like this. The wealth gets dug up. The wealth gets exported. The corporations make billions. Governments collect billions. Foreign investors get their share. The bureaucracy expands. And the worker gets told to tighten their belt. That is why people are angry. Not because they do not understand economics, but because they understand the basics perfectly well. If Australia is this rich, Australians should be seeing more of the benefit. That should mean more secure fuel supplies, stronger domestic industry, better infrastructure, more reliable and affordable energy, and a tax system that does not keep leaning hardest on the worker. Instead, too many Australians feel like they live in a country that sells abundance overseas and then manages scarcity at home. That is the real scandal. Australia is not poor. Australia is being mismanaged. Until politicians are forced to answer, where is the money? Nothing will change. This is not a poor country. It is a badly governed rich country. That should outrage every Australian.